What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily NFL Podcast. I'm Will Brinson. I'm your host. It is Thursday, June the 4th, and we are rolling right along with our All 32 series. We're ripping through the NFC and AFC East teams. Today is day 3, 2 teams per day, Tuesday through Friday until the end of June. It's almost like this podcast. It's the off season, and Devo came up with a plan to do more work for some reason, but that's because we care. We want to bring you content. So we're banging out these podcasts. They've been great discussion so far. This one is going to be awesome as well. We're going to talk about the Redskins. JP Finlay, my buddy up in, well, I guess you're not up in DC per se. You're up in Bethesda at JP Finlay, NBCS on Twitter. Insider for the Redskins, host of the Redskins Talk podcast. What's going on, dude?
Will, thanks for having me on, man. Hope everybody out there is safe and sound, man. These are wild times for everybody all over the country.
They are indeed. Okay, so we're going to spend the first 7 minutes of this podcast talking about widespread panic. And then, Diva doesn't realize it either. I've been scheduling, like Beasley and I talked fish for the first 3 minutes of the Dolphins podcast.
Perfect.
Which I technically guess is not related because, dolphins are
fish, dolphins,
they're mammals, but, it's sort of
covering the Redskins is kind of a panic-inducing situation. So maybe that works too.
Well, what was the last concert that you went to before the coronavirus lockdown?
Oh man, that's a great question. Actually, it's a dude you might like John Bowman. He's like a singer-songwriter from Texas. Really good. Just put out a new album. I saw there's a really little, it's more of a barbecue place, and they have like a basement kind of concert hall called Hill Country. There's one in DC, one in New York. I saw him in February, I'm guessing, because that was the last show I went to.
Okay. I saw Sturgill in March, which in hindsight, maybe a little later than I would have liked to have been going to a concert, but
yeah. He was here in DC at the Anthem, and I think it got canceled. I think it might have been like the next week or something.
So I think his next to last, so he played Charlotte on March 6th, and I think the next day he was playing with Tyler Childers, who's really good too, by the way. And then he went and played Charlottesville, I think. And then I think he was probably coming up to DC, and that's when I saw him on a Saturday, and my brother and I rode an Amtrak back on Sunday, like morons. Like I got a car. I live in North Carolina. Like, what am I doing on this train in a pandemic? And then the following Friday was when the lockdown started.
Dude, because if you go to a lot of shows, you can kind of often just finagle a ticket. I remember I didn't order the Sturgill tickets, and then it sold out, and I was like, all right, I'm going to keep my eye on that weekend and just kind of worm my way in there. And I'd have to double check, but I'm almost positive because it was like everything happened around St. Patrick's Day. It was like March 15th-ish. Yeah.
Well, because the Thursday of the ACC tournament, Florida State and who were they playing? Pitt?
Oh, somebody started, right?
They were like coming out for warm-up, whatever it was. Like it was the noon game, and then they canceled it. And that was after the Wednesday night was when Rudy Gobert had, tested positive or whatever.
Tom Hanks and everything.
Yeah. So that was the Wednesday. That was like Wednesday, March 9th or something, or Wednesday, March 10th or something like that.
How long ago does that seem, man?
Years.
Oh my God.
It's been 3 months, not even 3 months, and it feels like 14 years. But yeah. So I'm just curious to I think it's fascinating because I think it's be a while before you go back to concerts. So I think it's interesting to ask somebody people who go to concerts frequently, what was the last one you went to? And that's just sort of the point of demarcation for me is like that's
for sure. I had to get some expense reports done that were very, very late. And so I had to go through some Uber receipts because we have any dollar amount over X. I have to track down the receipt.
Yeah.
And dude, I take a lot of Ubers, just one work-wise, and then just better safe than sorry with the car.
Probably took a bunch in Indianapolis at the Combine when you were there. I wasn't there, as we've talked about.
Right, as our last DMs discovered. But
right.
I think I mean, I'm probably taking 5-6 Ubers a week. I haven't taken one since that same time, since that third week of March, whatever it was.
I
don't know
see
the
how
next time I'll get in one, man.
I don't either. I mean, it's like, I mean, do you think about like even getting in a cab? So, all right, so we talked about, I don't know, Debo, tell me if I talked about this on the podcast already, but like I was talking with some friends. I mean, I like bowling. I think bowling's a fun activity to do for recreational purposes. I'm probably never bowling again. Like you have to go there and you put on community shoes, and
the shoes will be tough.
And then you jam your finger in a community ball.
Oh yeah.
Apparently we did talk. Apparently I did talk with this about Pete Prisco, but I don't know. They're just like riding in a cab feels less than ideal until we know that there's some sort of vaccine out there. These are like tertiary problems to the world. It's a commentary on how things have changed more than anything. And yes, I agree with you. I hope everybody is safe.
But the crazy part is that is such a minuscule thing.
Exactly.
But if you think about like the industry surrounding bowling, I have no idea how many people are employed in bowling and how much money it generates, but across the country, it's got to be hundreds of thousands of people and millions and millions of dollars.
Oh, and I'll tell you, it's a lot of,
it might be gone.
A ton of square footage, like of real estate, of commercial real estate that's being used. Commercial real estates can be fascinating too, because how many people are going back to offices, you know?
I'm not a Wall Street guy. I don't know that world at all, but that space seems very, very troubled. And not just in the short term, because I think a lot of what will come of this is that people, you got bosses, right? The boss of a company, the owner of a company, he or she wants people in the office because that's where you're most productive. Let's say productivity falls from 10 to 9 with everybody working from home.
Might go up to 11, honestly.
It might, but overhead will fall from 10 to 7 by not having to pay for it. Probably more than that.
10 to 2. Yeah, I mean, exactly.
It's crazy.
The numbers are pretty explicit. So that is going to be an interesting fallout. And of course, like all the stuff going on in the world with the protests and everything, it's like, not that it has, it overshadows the pandemic even. And so it's like, it's just wild to go from that to the next thing, but let's talk Redskins.
Yeah.
I feel like for whatever reason, maybe it's because it's like June and all these teams we talked about, the AFC East and the NFC East, are really fascinating to me. Like even the Giants are like interesting because can Dave Gettleman survive? Is Daniel Jones any good? I mean, Washington is an extremely intriguing team because for the first time since the last time Joe Gibbs, since the first time since 2012, like, not that you have hope for the Redskins to be great this year or anything, but I mean, Ron Rivera's in town and this is an entirely different regime. All right, I'll ask you this because we got to start with the quarterback. I guess, like, what do you think the plan is for this team at quarterback? Because I thought there's a viable case to take Tua at number 2. I understand taking Chase Young and seeing what you have in Dwayne Haskins. What do you think they think about the quarterback situation, both short and long term?
I mean, you're right. Everything does start with Ron because it's an entirely different feel.
I mean, he should have fired, and this is his prerogative, and they needed to do it. They needed to clean house, all due respect to the people who lost their jobs. But like, he changed up the business. Like, he changed up everything on the football side, like the training staff, all that. Like, he brings in Ryan Vermillion from Carolina. Like, it's a wholesale change.
Well, and I mean, not to even go further back, but the firing of Bruce Allen, in Washington sports, is the biggest story since the Nats won the World Series. I mean, getting rid of that dude is a huge, 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 huge deal for Redskins fans. So go from that to Ron, who is not a sexy hire, but it's a good hire, and I think his foundation and culture and everything is something that these fans are dying for and the organization desperately needs. And then, so all of that is 10 out of 10. Everybody's applauding. Then you get to Dwayne, and you had the kind of conversation, certainly that was going on in Indy at the Combine, and it lessened as coronavirus took hold of everything, and Tua wasn't, doing his barnstorming tour across the country and all. If Tua got to travel around and take all his official visits and all the trade rumors and all that stuff, that would have changed things. But when everything got shut down, the Skins were always drafting Chase Young, but they kind of stopped the facade of anything else and just leaned into Dwayne's our guy, Chase Young's our guy. We're excited for 2020. If Dwayne's a stock, I would buy some of it right now. I think he has tremendous talent, and he showed real improvement late in the year. And if you just look at his season numbers, they're bad.
Yeah.
But a lot of that, his first 2 appearances were not in starts. He came in off the bench after Case Keenum got hurt against the Giants in week 3 or 4, and he was god awful. He was terrible.
So it was week 4, and they were already, I think they were already down big, and like his first throw was a pick six, maybe.
No, once they got into the second half, it fell apart on him.
That's right.
What's interesting is they were down, and Keenum was playing terribly, and Dwayne led them on a pretty good drive, and they had 1st and goal at the 3. He missed a fade. Gruden always loved the fade. Then he missed what could have been a touchdown throw to Vernon Davis on an out route right at the corner of the end zone. And so they only got a field goal, and then things just fell apart from there. The second half was awful. So he was awful, and no reason to sugarcoat that. Then after he got a start, his next 2 starts were bad but okay. They were, I'm not even going to say promising, but they weren't awful. And then his last 2 starts were good. You don't have to pretend. Just look at the numbers. I was at each of them. He played very well. He started to show the accuracy he had at Ohio State.
He was 31 of 43, which is 72.1% completions, 394 passing yards over 2 games, 4 touchdowns, no picks, 131.3 rating. Like, that's just good.
Now he got hurt going into halftime of week 16 against the Giants. So
that's right.
Those numbers are over the last 6 quarters, and that's against the Eagles and the Giants, which if you're going to play in DC, you got to be able to beat NFC East teams.
And 2 terrible secondaries too, which is, worth. I'm not dogging the performance, but like, you want to like show up and show out against those 2 teams is very important, especially late in that first year.
Yeah. And so take all of that. I don't know that you follow him on social media or anything. He has lost a ton of weight. He's transformed his body like any second-year player should. He had some baby fat to him. He was a little doughy coming out of college last year. He looks incredibly different. I had him on my podcast. The way he sounds is dramatically different. Last year, whenever he was doing media, none of it went right. He either sounded sheepish or super cocky, and I don't think either of those are who he really is. I just think he was in this super awkward trying to be an NFL quarterback rather than just be himself and allow that to be the NFL quarterback. He sounds much more at peace with himself and his situation. And I think a lot of that is, 2019 Redskins were a complete disaster. Gruden gets fired
Gruden, 5. And then Bill Callahan's trying to melting the clock as fast as he set the record for most sub 4-hour games in an NFL season in the last 20 years.
And it was very obvious that Jay didn't want to draft Dwayne.
Yeah.
Jay wanted to play Colt. Colt got hurt. Jay was playing Case. They had to keep Dwayne up. Dwayne didn't deserve. It wasn't fair to anybody for him to be on the field early on. He wasn't really getting coached. Some of that's on Dwayne too, because there are plenty of young quarterbacks that will take advantage of every opportunity they get. I don't know if you've seen this at Panthers practice or whatever, but some quarterbacks, backup quarterbacks, will kind of lean in on the huddle of the starters so they can hear how the play gets called, how players react, and then they kind of lean back out. Like during training camp, when Dwayne wasn't on offense, he was off to the side. I'm not going to question if he was paying attention or not, but he didn't look engaged.
Maybe, and the thing is too, Case Keenum and Colt McCoy are 2 guys who will, I think, embrace a younger, they're not going to push you away like Flacco did to Lamar Jackson or whatever it was. And so he could have leaned in, but I also think he basically had 1 year starting it. He had monster numbers at Ohio State, but he's so inexperienced, he just might not have known. And then if you got a head coach, I like Jay Gruden. I think he's a better head coach than people give credit for. But if he wasn't invested in Dwayne Haskins, he's not going to be giving him the little, hey man, go do this. Go, you need to be going to do this. He's trying to save his job.
Totally. It was an awful situation all around, and you kind of figured that out early on, and then they got, the game. I wonder how different everything would have been. So week 2019 in Philly, the Skins have a 2-touchdown lead at halftime.
And Carson Wentz
went deep to Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
Right. But like the Skins still, I think there was like a fluky pick six in like the last 30 seconds or something. So that score looks a little bigger than it actually was. But if the Skins could have just held on, they had a drive in the second half where they tied it up. If they could have held on and won that game, you can always play those what ifs in sports. But so Dwayne seems in a better place. I think he is obviously the more talented quarterback than Kyle Allen.
Sure.
One guy's 15th overall pick. One guy threw 50 touchdowns at Ohio State. Kyle Allen bounced around a few colleges, undrafted guy. All of that said, if Dwayne struggles, I don't think there'll be much hesitation to go to Kyle Allen. Scott Turner knows and likes Kyle Allen.
He straight up likes Kyle Allen. Like there should be no just like debating that. He does. He likes him.
Coordinators like guys that are going to run their offense, and he knows Kyle Allen is going to run his offense. But to me, I still think Dwayne gets a pretty long leash. I think Dwayne would have to really struggle for the Redskins bye week is in the middle of the year. I think you'd have to struggle the whole start of the year, and then maybe coming out of the bye, something would have to happen. And I don't see it happening. I don't see it happening to the point where he's getting benched. I really don't, because I think it's kind of a bit of a positive catch-22 for the Redskins by letting Dwayne play 2020. If you look how they approached free agency, they didn't spend much. They went after Amari Cooper, couldn't get him. They didn't chase bad money, right? Like they didn't just go throw a ton of cash to Robbie Anderson or something. They wanted their guy, didn't get him, kind of kept it moving. So in turn, Ron is comfortable that he has years to do this rebuild the right way. They're focused on making the defense much better right away. So play Dwayne all year. And if he shows you enough, then you've got your guy going forward. And then you can address receiver next year, tight end next year, left tackle, depending how things shake out. There's still plenty of holes. And if he shows you definitively you don't have enough, then you're probably drafting top 5 again, and then you get your quarterback. So I kind of think for a team that doesn't have – I think playoff aspirations are pretty silly for this team in 2020. So I think it's actually they're in an oddly good place for a long-term rebuild as long as ownership is it's easy to say you're on board in April, May, June with that, but
or in year zero too. Like
exactly.
So, and this is the other thing too that I think, like, it was like talking about Tua and should you draft him? It's like, why don't they sign Cam Newton? It's like, look, there are some politics to this as well. Like Ron Rivera can't just crap all over Dwayne Haskins and not give him an opportunity without running the risk of making the guy who signs his paycheck and ultimately can decide if he wants to hire or fire him in Daniel Snyder. You have to if you're Ron Rivera, I think it's wise to throw Dan Snyder a bone and to say, look, we're going to spend 2020 finding out about Dwayne Haskins. Now you need to understand, Dan, if this goes south and we do it up, and like he stinks and he doesn't look good, then we're gonna probably have to make a decision about a quarterback moving forward. And fortunately for the Redskins in that case, I think what the Cardinals did with Josh Rosen and Kyler Murray, there's sort of a blueprint out there. And in fact, the Panthers actually did it back with Ron Rivera with Cam Newton and Jimmy Clausen, but that was a while ago. There's a blueprint out there for reinvesting in the quarterback position, even if you recently took one. You know what I mean? And I think if 2020, as you point out, is a disaster, Ron Rivera will have the cachet to say, listen, we just need to make this move. If you want this franchise to win, which you say you do, we need to draft somebody. I agree. I think Haskins could take a step forward. But I think he needs help from, other pieces. And we'll take a quick break and then we'll talk about those other pieces after the break. All right. So the other thing about Haskins too, is that his leading receiver is Terry McLaurin, a rookie. His second leading receiver is Chris Thompson. Then Steven Sims, Kelvin Harmon, another rookie. Love him at NC State. This is not exactly the 27 Yankees of wide receivers we're talking about here.
Right. Sure. there's a reason they went after Amari Cooper and offered him north of $110 million. McLaurin is the real deal. I think he can be a really special player. Outside of that, they don't have anybody that defensive coordinators at this point are going to worry about. And you mentioned Chris Thompson. I mean, he's gone. He's in Jacksonville now with Jay Gruden.
Yep.
That said, they have some options. The kid they drafted, Antonio Gibson out of Memphis, was a complete home run hitter in college. He just had the one season, but it was really impressive. You like Kelvin Harmon. I think he can be a really good possession receiver for you. He doesn't have the speed to make chunk plays in the NFL. This kid, Steve Sims, though, he was an undrafted rookie last year out of Kansas. Really small, really shifty, really fast. He can help. Another guy they drafted out of Liberty, so I think there could be a pretty serious transition, is Antonio Gandy Golden.
Yeah.
But Santana Moss, who made a living going deep and getting open in the NFL, he does a lot of work with us on the TV side, and we had to do these rehearsals for our draft shows over and over and over for trying to get the technical side of this done during a pandemic was hard to do. So we understand why we had to do these. But Santana, every time we talked about wideouts, talked about Antonio Gandy Golden, I guess because the high school he went to in Miami is still very important to him. And the kid that played quarterback there was now the quarterback at Liberty. So he watched a ton of Liberty tape. And he's like, I'm telling you, this kid can play. So I believe Santana in situations like that because he was saying it before the Redskins drafted him. That said, there's still going to be an adjustment period from Liberty to the NFC East. Running back, if Darius Geis can stay healthy, the way Scott Turner wants to run his offense with a ton of passes going to the backs, Geis could be a beast for them. I don't know if Darius Geis can stay healthy at this point. I mean, he's been in the league 2 years. He's started one game. I think he's played in 5. So the numbers are, the track record isn't there. Adrian Peterson's going to give him 800 rush yards, I would guess. No, there's nothing at tight end unless you think Thaddeus Moss can get the foot injury right. And I don't know, he went undrafted. Usually that happens for a reason. So it's hard to look at the Redskins offense and be particularly bullish about any aspects of it. The only thing I say to the Dwayne doesn't have any weapons, how can he get anything done camp is that good quarterbacks make players better. Yeah. And I'm not comparing Haskins to Russell Wilson at all, but if you look at what Russ Wilson does year after year after year without real elite weapons up there, it's pretty remarkable. And I think you can see other QBs that can make. I mean, we'll see in Cleveland, right? But is Austin Hooper the best tight end in football? Like, should he be making $11 million a year, or is Matt Ryan and Julio Jones help him out a lot? So yeah. I think things like that can be a factor too.
No, that's fair. Defensively, I actually think this is an interesting team because one of the things, and I'm not again, I think Jay Gruden's a good coach, but he's a good offensive coach. And I don't hate what the Redskins were doing on defense previously, but I firmly believe that Ron Rivera is a really good defensive coach. And I think being in a first, I tend to think that, when you get fired and you go to a new job, he'd been in Carolina forever, man. I think that this sort of change can invigorate a person and can cause them to sort of be motivated to come in and reassess how they do things. And I expect Ron Rivera to put together with, Chase Young in there now, Ryan Kerrigan, Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Montez Sweat. That's a ton of first-round talent on the defensive line. Matt Ioannidis, I didn't even mention, who's not a first-rounder, but a great player. I just think there's enough here where he can really create something. Am I wrong?
No, you're not. And I think for the Skins will show improvement this year, and I think it'll be defensively driven. Jay, I think, is a good head coach. But Jay was always nervous to have a good defensive coordinator because I think the Bruce Allen sword of Damocles held over him all the time.
Wow.
That he never knew, hey, if I bring Wade Phillips in, are they going to axe me and let Wade take over the job? And I think that was an issue. If you look at his coordinators, he kept Jim Haslett when he first got the job. Haslett was terrible. Then he hired Joe Barry, who Joe B is a great dude, but his track record as a D coordinator is not good. He's a good linebackers coach. Players like him, but the track record, the stats are what the stats are. Then they finally get rid of Joe B, and all right, you got to hire somebody legitimate. And he promotes in-house again and hires Greg Minuski. Some of the Greg Minuski hire was because Minuski and Jim Tomsula were very close. That was kind of a package deal. It still was a really bad fit. Greg Minuski.
By the way, I want a reality show of Greg Minuski and Jim Tomsula where they just bar hop. Like that's all they do is they go from bar to bar in different cities and we just see what unfolds as these two just meat faces go out and just hound Coors Light or whatever it is they're drinking.
I'm trying to remember what it was. Jim Tom's big thing, I want to say it's PBR, was
that makes sense.
Salt. You put some salt in there, and it really expands the flavor. I blogged about it. I'll try to track it down. But Jim Tom's one of the best people I've ever covered, and he would never ever let you put any of it on the record. But his charitable stuff, just his personal, the way he carried himself, great dude. But so all of that. Coordinators were awful. So what does Ron Rivera do? He makes a point in his opening press conference of saying, one thing I realized that I did wrong in Charlotte was that I never had another former head coach on my staff. I wanted to do that right away. And he got Jack Del Rio, who I'd argue was the best available D coordinator on the street, for lack of a better word. He was working at ESPN. Go look at the numbers of what defenses do in Del Rio's
Jack Del Rio is just a good defensive coordinator.
Totally.
And by the way, a quick actually, if you Google, I didn't know this, if you Google Jim Tomsula salt beer, as it turns out, I also blogged about Jim Tomsula's beer of choice in August of 2018. Somehow I don't remember that, but National Treasure Jim Tomsula provides blue-collar beer drinking tip to, quote, change your life. What a headline.
Was it PBR?
Yeah, salt and PBR.
Yeah. Dude, I mean, we're bloggers. That's what we do. We don't remember all the blogs. There's thousands of them.
So many blogs. And that is, as soon as I Googled it and I saw CBSSports.com pop up, I was like, 100% I'm going to click this, and that's going to be my name in the byline. Anyway, yeah, Del Rio, a great defensive coordinator and a guy with a track record of being a great defensive coordinator.
Now, what the biggest difference they're going to – Minuski was extremely conservative, and Minuski – ended up with guys playing out of position nearly all the time. You had Ryan Kerrigan trying to cover Zach Ertz on deep seams, and it just was a mess. They're going to play downhill. They're going the front four. They're switching from a 3-4 to a 4-3, which isn't nearly as big of a deal as people like to make of it because you play a four-man front in your nickel package 50-60% of the time anyway.
Yep.
But the bigger difference is that it won't be kind of a gap stuffing defensive line scheme where linebackers are supposed to make the plays, which the Skins just did not have the personnel for. They had talent up front and mediocre linebackers. Now it's going to be about using the talent up front to get upfield against the run and the pass, and then see what happens after that. So I think schematically it makes more sense. Adding Chase Young, I think he's going to win Defensive Rookie of the Year. I think he is that dude.
He's a favorite.
I think he should be. I mean, he's incredible. And then you listen to what, I had Urban Meyer and Ryan Day and all these people on our podcast talking about him. The way they talk about him is like another Bosa. So I think he'll deliver on that. That said, though, they've got some warts. They're thin at corner. I like Kendall Fuller a lot, but typically his strength has been playing on the inside.
Yeah.
I think they're going to need him to play on the outside if you look at the contract. Opposite him, you're talking about Fabian Moreau or Ronald Darby. You can draw your own conclusions about those guys. I like Landon Collins. I think Landon Collins will play better in a more aggressive scheme. Sean Davis is a dude they signed from the Steelers to play next to Landon. I think Davis can actually play. Some of that is he's a Terp and I'm a Terp, so got to stay healthy.
I'm like, yeah, Kelvin Harmon's a monster, man.
Right. Their linebackers, I think, are serious question marks. Cole Holcomb can play at Tar Heel for you. Thomas Davis is super old, but still very good. But after that, man, John Bostic, Kevin Pierre-Louis, I think a lot of fans are hoping and expecting Reuben Foster can come back, but he just regained feeling in his foot in January. So with the Skins, with Reuben Foster, Bryce Love, and Alex Smith, I am counting all of those dudes out, wishing them the best. And once I see them on an actual practice field, I'm willing to reassess that opinion.
No, that makes sense. And the Thomas Davis thing, we talked to Matthew Fairburn about the Bills for Bill's edition of this podcast. He was just pointing out, like, they love like bringing in old Carolina guys. I mean, it's insane. Like, they have like 42 of them, but they're like, the Thomas Davis thing is almost like Ron Rivera's, he needs somebody who's familiar how to, like, he knows he can trust out there on the field. He at a position he desperately needs help at, and somebody that can help sort of build up the locker room, the locker room leadership. And Thomas TD is one of like his all-time favorite guys that he ever coached. All right. So let me ask you this. What do you think is what's it like? What is a good season for the Redskins? And I'm going to guess, okay, and this has been a theme for the first like 6 podcasts that we've done on these various teams, but I'm going to guess like the win total doesn't even really matter. And it's probably Dwayne Haskins plays well and they know they have or they get an answer on Dwayne Haskins one way or the other. Is that probably it?
Yeah. So my benchmark, what is a good season, is you figure out the answer on Dwayne one way or the other. I think the goal should be doubling your win total. So you go from 3-13 to 6-10. 6-10 is still bad, but that's significant improvement. Defensively, they ranked 27th in team defense. I think you're looking to get into the top half of the league. So you want to be 15 or above. And I think a competitive 6-10 would be a real step, because we don't know what's going to happen with the salary cap. We don't know what's going to happen with revenue. I get all that. The Skins are going to have a ton of money in 2021. They're second right now in cap space. And next year, Alex Smith's $20 million will come off the books. Yeah. There's some Ryan Kerrigan this is the last year of his contract. There's some.
By the way, all due respect to Alex Smith, who is like by all accounts one of the nicest human beings on the planet, and I am thrilled that he did not lose a leg. That trade was terrible. Like the trade wasn't. The contract was terrible. You didn't have to sign him.
The trade, you can argue. I mean,
the trade was fine. Signing Alex Smith to an extension
and a third stinks, but you're getting a quarterback that you need, right? Like, there just aren't enough quarterbacks. You're getting one. They were leading the NFC East before he got injured. You can argue about the trade, but the extension to me, I feel like it's hard for people to understand what the Bruce Allen era was really like.
Oh, sure.
Like, I think a part of giving Alex that extension was like an FU to Kirk. Like, hey, look, we'll give him the extension. We would just never pay you. And that's how crazy the operation was.
Yeah. It's like he set his cap space on fire for spite.
Yeah. And I mean, dude, look at this Trent Williams thing. They could have at least gotten a second last year, and he just wouldn't trade him. And probably a first. Like, if you just put a for sale sign up and let people compete, you're getting a first. And instead they end up with a third and a fifth.
Yeah.
And Ron, Ron made chicken salad out of chicken feathers in that situation. But
feathers,
dude, yeah, I don't know who's editing what.
Yeah, by the way, I thought you made.
They get very mad if I curse right now because it's harder to edit via Zoom and everything.
Debo gets pretty annoyed if we cuss. If I cuss, it's usually me like Sean will mention Jay Cutler like unnecessarily. I just yell like stop with F and Jay Cutler and like do it on purpose with a purposeful edit in mind. Sometimes people will slip up and swear, but it's fine if you do.
Chicken feathers.
Chicken feathers. By the way, I thought you made a great point about that trade. That's one of the things too. Like Bruce Allen, far too petty to trade with the Shanaclans. Like he ain't doing it. He's out of spite. Will not trade for him. I understand. I get it. I'm a spiteful human being too. But like, if you're a good football executive, you have to put business ahead of personal feelings. Like go out there and get a second round pick from the 49ers because Kyle Shanahan will give it to you. What are you doing?
Well, and I mean, Kyle wanted Kirk before that.
Right.
It's not even a threat. But I think that is, and I wrote about this when it happened, Ron getting this year's deal done with Trent Williams with the Niners shows that he is in a real position of power.
Sure.
And I think one thing that's important is that there was always a conduit. Even when Shanahan, you had Jay Gruden had to go to Bruce to get to Dan. And Shanahan had to go to Bruce to get to Dan. Shanahan had a lot of power early on, but that thing went nuclear with Robert and everything else.
Right.
But even before Bruce, there was this dude, Vinny Serrato, who was
now on a 105.7 The Fan in Baltimore.
Right. Yes, he is.
With Bob Haney. Yeah.
So for anybody else to get to Dan, you had to go through Vinny. So there's always been this conduit. Now it's just Ron. And Ron openly talks about his relationship with Dan, how he speaks to him, how he keeps him in the loop. And I think it's a pretty smart strategy. You never know if things will go wrong. And until, I mean, hell, dude, look at they could go 2-7 at the break. And who knows what happens then.
Yeah. I mean,
2-6, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. Like they could be awful early on, and Dan Snyder and Ron could be like, this is Dwayne Haskins' fault, and Dan's like, no, it's not. It's your fault, and fire him. Like anything's on the table with Dan Snyder of the Washington Redskins. But I don't
think it'll be that bad. But
no, I don't either. But I'm just saying,
know.
But the removal of Bruce Allen makes a huge difference because, and I don't know Bruce personally, but you spend a lot of time around that team, and I think you'd back the statement up. Like he's in Dan Snyder's ear, not looking out for it's self-preservation. He's not trying to improve the franchise. He's trying to make sure he keeps his job, and that would come at the expense of having power over people underneath him, and at the expense of, maybe like throwing Jay Gruden under the bus midseason.
If you ever needed a clearer example of that, why would you fire Jay the week before the Miami game?
Oh my God, it was right. It was like
all right, we get because he knows Bill's going to come in. And they'll put Dwayne in, and there will be no more of AP on the inactive list, all these sorts of things. And Jay was kind of poking needles because Jay was fed up too.
Sure. Jay knew he was getting fired. So he's like,
Jay knew he was getting fired. Jay was making jokes about getting fired. If you go all the way back kind of a year from now, what a difference a year makes, when there was still the drama around what team was going to get selected for Hard Knocks. And I asked him, hey, do you think you'll get selected for Hard Knocks? And he's like, nah, take my brother. He'll be way better at it. You can get us next year. And I was like, yeah, but if you make the playoffs, you don't get to be on Hard Knocks. He's like, man, if I don't make the playoffs, I'm fired anyway.
That was it was at the owners' meetings in Orlando, right? Was it in Orlando? Where was it?
Arizona. One of the great things about Jay, and I hope this doesn't get lost because Jacksonville is just a smaller media market, is he's got the best one-liners ever.
He's hilarious.
He had him in Arizona too. Gruden didn't get a raw deal here, but he didn't get what was FDR's thing, like a square deal. He didn't get that either.
A new deal?
New deal. Sorry, thank you.
No,
it was like
quarantine brain. You're allowed to forget FDR's plans.
It was somewhere like.
But see, that's why you don't take the Redskins job at that time if you're Jay Gruden. You know what I mean?
That's why it's crazy that Ron jumped in both feet first. Yeah. Dude, Ron could have been head coach of the Giants. Yep. He could have a lot of jobs. Ron might the Cowboy. I don't know. Dan Snyder and I have spoken less than a handful of times. I have next to zero personal relationship with him. But I do know that people that know him and work for him will tell you that he can be extremely charismatic and extremely engaging when I don't think any billionaire out there gets there without having any people skills, right? Like on some level, you can do tremendous things.
Yeah.
And I think Ron believes in Dan and Dan believes in Ron. And if that holds and works, and the only time this was working was Joe Gibbs 2.0. And then Sean Taylor died and everything went sideways. But for the first time, it seems like Dan is giving somebody the Gibbs treatment. And Shanahan kind of got it, but then they traded for Donovan like right away, and it kind of got yanked out from him. So, and that was Bruce. Like Bruce was there. There's nobody else here right now. And Ron got to bring all his own guys in. This dude, Rob Rogers, is running all the contracts and stuff. That meant the ouster of Eric Schaefer, who had been with the Redskins nearly 20 years. These are names that don't mean a big deal nationally.
Huge locally, though.
Big deal in Ashburn. Larry Hess had been the Redskins trainer
for years,
the head athletic trainer for multiple regimes, like Gruden, Shanahan, going way back. And from what I understand, was close personal friends with Snyder. And for him to get ousted is a big deal. Like, those things are big deals.
Um, I was and like I don't know Larry Hess, and I don't want to speak badly about him, but the Redskins, I believe, I'm looking at Football Outsiders. They published it in the last month, adjusted games lost. I think for
Yeah.
like the 7th straight year, the Redskins ranked in the bottom 5 of adjusted games lost, along with, surprise, surprise, the West Coast version of the Redskins, the Los Angeles Chargers. At some point, you have to take an internal look and say, okay, we haven't won in 20 years. Could perhaps some of these things that have been the same for so long, like, again, Larry Hess, like maybe at some point you have to change the way you're training your athletes if all these guys just continually get hurt, right? And then the Trent Williams stuff, of course. I really think the thing with Ron, and I don't want to keep you on here too long. We've been going this forever, but it's an interesting philosophical talk about how the Redskins are really being rebuilt. For like Ron, I think he looked at the Redskins job and was like, okay, this is not the best job in football. I could probably land a job that I can win at easier, but he went to Dan Snyder and said, hey, look, if you give me wholesale control, I will take this job right now, and I will be able to turn it around by changing the culture and changing what we do. But you have to be willing to make some serious, like, franchise-altering, like, moves and changes. And Dan Snyder signed off on it, I guess, because he was sick of losing.
Totally. And so if the two jobs I mentioned, the Giants and the Cowboys, he's not telling Jerry what to do. Nobody's ever going to tell Jerry what to do.
No, Jerry made Mike McCarthy keep Kellen Moore.
He's already worked with Dave Gettleman.
Yeah.
He's not going to tell Dave Gettleman's crazy ass what to do.
And also, he knows Dave Gettleman's probably getting fired after this year. So it's like, why would you get hired by Dave Gettleman?
Not to mention, you go there. I don't know about New York because they're in a kind of similar situation than the Skins right now, as far as a big rebuild. But you take the Cowboys job or you take the Browns job, there's immediate pressure to win.
Yeah.
Ron has time here because this team is awful. They have lots of holes. And so it's similar to when he got the Panthers job that you were allowed to have incremental success. And I think if they 6-10 should be the mark for 2020. And then you get to 8-8, 9-7 in 2021. And you're maybe, especially if there's a 7th wild card, if you can turn the Skins around, you'll be a saint
You're a made man in Washington.
Dude, I mean, this fan base is hurting. There's no doubt about that. But this fan base is massive. And because I travel with the team, like I go to all the away games. There's thousands of Redskins fans every game we go to. Southern California, Texas, Florida.
Half of North Carolina's Redskins fans.
Totally. And the Panthers have been there now 25 years or whatever. Yeah. So it's if he can ever actually turn this thing around, the upside is off the charts for him. And he could build a legacy in a way that maybe he has in Carolina. But I also think, and I don't know enough about the situation down there, but when David Tepper took over and everything seemed to change pretty dramatically. And Ron's relationship, I assume, was with Jerry Richardson. So Dan's not going anywhere. So if these two have a tight relationship that they can work through and get through, I think Kyle Smith is a really talented young football evaluator that kind of sounds like Ron wants to go ahead and name him GM.
Yeah. What's the deal with that? Is he like sort of I don't want to say it's like a Belichick situation, but it's like he's sort of the GM, but not really.
Ron?
No, Kyle Smith.
Yeah. So yes, and we asked Ron why not name him GM, and Ron said that's Dan's call. So that's kind of where that is. Honestly, I'm curious. I assume actually this will change, and we would have seen it change if not for coronavirus and whatever, because there haven't been any practices, there haven't been any workouts. We haven't seen Ron Rivera in head coach mode yet. But from everything I've seen and heard and kind of watching from up close for a little while and now from afar, is Ron is kind of taken like a team president role so far, and structurally and building the organization how he wants it. And I think especially having Jack Del Rio there, he's going to be very hands-on defensively, don't get me wrong, but he doesn't have to. I think he's got somebody he trusts that can run that defense, and he can be something to everybody more than what you see. And a lot of times in the NFL, I'm not sure average fans realize how separated, almost like polarized offenses and defenses are, and whatever way the head coach leans, he's typically just on that side of the field. And there's only, on plenty of teams, the head coach is only addressing the whole team on like Saturday night before games. I think it's going to be different with Ron.
Well, and I think it's worth noting too. So Ron Rivera took over in 2011 in Carolina. And I'm pretty sure, I'm going to tell you in like 1 second, but I am almost certain that first year that he hired, Sean McDermott was his first defensive coordinator in Carolina. Like he had Sean McDermott as his DC from 2011 until 2000.
So he took the Bills job, right?
So he took the Bills job, exactly. So McDermott was the DC through the 2016 season. Then in 2015 was the Super Bowl run. Okay. So McDermott leaves. And McDermott had been there forever, right? Then Steve Wilkes takes over in 2017. Then Wilkes gets the Arizona job the year after that. And so it's a little bit this just happens in the NFL. When you win football games, there's a brain drain on your coaching staff. And Ron lost 2 veteran guys he trusted in back-to-back years, and that led to Eric Washington taking over. The defense fell off a cliff in 2018, and then Ron was completely hands-on in 2019. So I think it is his style to allow his guys to run it, and he likes to be more of a CEO, and I think he'll take that role in Washington with a guy like Del Rio, and it's a win-win for those guys, because if this defense flips over like completely and turns into a top half of the league defense, Jack Del Rio is probably getting another head coaching job.
Totally. And that's the other part of this. I don't think Jack's taking this gig without recognizing how much talent there is up front.
For sure.
He knows he's got a former All-Pro safety on the back, and he probably thinks he can scheme up a lot of that. And just honestly, if they're just more effective on third down, this defense will be significantly better. And they were historically bad through 14 games last year, and a lot of that was just Greg Minuski's abject refusal to be aggressive.
Well, but you're talking about that scheme is you've got all these guys, including like Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, and Allen got hurt. And did he get hurt? He got hurt last year, right? Or was that the year?
No, his rookie year.
His rookie year got hurt. Okay,
he's been pretty much healthy.
But like these are like guys
through some knee stuff, but
these are guys who, like, regardless of the front, you should be just uncorking as a unit to get after the passer, not to occupy blockers and let your sub replacement level linebackers try and sprint through and tackle dudes. This is stupid. Like that's bad football.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, it's bad football. Okay. We have magically somehow been going for like an hour. I don't know how that, I mean, it's because I enjoy talking to you. And you got a family you got to go deal with, and you need 30 minutes to go. Like, you got to go find a beer and sit in your car and drink a beer in your car.
Yeah, no, I think I have to go get some organic apples.
I'm
not kidding either.
No, of course you're not kidding.
What I have to go get.
But why are all apples not organic? What is the what is the difference? I guess it's hormones. Have we been pumping apples full of hormones for all these years? And doctors are telling us to eat them
or something. I don't know. Yeah, I literally am drinking a Dr. Pepper and just ate a bag of peanut M&Ms. So I'm not too worried about the organic apples. But my wife tells me it's for my daughter, so I do it. I need what else do I need? Organic pears too.
Shut up and go spend $100 at Whole Foods.
Dude, exactly. You know the worst part? Do the Whole Foods by you have the bar in them?
Oh yeah, but I don't know about anymore. They did until the pandemic.
Right, sure. So Maryland is so dumb that you can't get beer or wine at any grocery stores. At least where I live in Montgomery County.
In Maryland?
Whereas in Virginia, the Whole Foods have bars in them. Even in D.C., I live like a mile to the D.C. line. The Whole Foods down there has.
Oh, yeah, Chad Dukes will stop tweeting about
it's like his favorite bar.
Slamming beers at Whole Foods. We can't buy liquor. We can only buy liquor at ABC stores in North Carolina. But as you may know from your out of base time, but you can definitely buy beer at Whole Foods and drink it while you shop.
Dude, you can't. Where I live, you can't even buy beer at gas stations, which is the most infuriating thing in the world.
That's terrible.
I want to move. I want to move to Virginia. My wife
just for the beer.
I mean, there's a long list of reasons, but that's relatively. Dude, we get charged a nickel for every plastic bag at the grocery store.
What?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like D.C., Montgomery County, and San Francisco. Those are the places you get charged a nickel for.
So where can you buy your beer? Are there bottle shops at least?
Beer stores, pretty much, and a lot of like little mom and pop delis are allowed to sell beer and wine. Booze you don't even want to hear about. It's like an actual communist scheme. Like the county controls it all, and like it's wild.
Well, that's
But
well, this.
all that stuff, I can just drive to DC. Like
Yeah.
it's basically like I have a beer store one way in Maryland or another in DC that are pretty
Gotcha.
much equidistant.
So it's basically the time of day when you're going to get your beer. It's like
Yeah,
you're not
or where
like,
I'm going.
right. Or like if it's 5 p.m., you're not like driving into DC to like get a 12-pack of Natty Ice or something like that. Or whatever IPA.
I hope there's never a time I'm getting a Natty Ice
I know.
at age 38.
I know. Yeah, I mean, the North Carolina liquor thing is it's distributed by county, and it's even distribution by county across the whole state. So like if there's 40 cases, let's say there's 100 counties in North Carolina, and the state alcohol board gets 100 cases of Old Weller. And now it's a little divvied up by population, I guess, but like, New Hanover County's getting 2 cases of Old Weller, and so is like Wake County, even though there's, so it's ridiculous. Like there's these down east, like bomb F counties where it's like nobody's buying, like it's just not selling. It just sits on shelves, and then you just can't even find like Eagle Rare at a store here in Raleigh. It's infuriating.
Dude, so bourbon is so hard to find though too. Like Eagle Rare is hard to find. Weller is super hard to find. But the 2 counties I've lived in North Carolina, these probably would rank in your bottom 10 counties, I would think. New Hanover was one of them.
Was down there last weekend.
And Wilkes County. Where would you rank Wilkes County in your county power ranking?
Which one is Wilkes County? Hold on. I used to know.
Oh,
Wilkesboro. Is that Wilkesboro?
Winston and Boone. Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I went to
Dude,
Wilkesboro Elementary.
Did you really? Have we talked about this? My grandfather's from North Wilkesboro.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, my mom's whole side, her whole side of the family. You know who's from there that you'll never, unless you know this, you're not going to guess it.
Arthur Blank.
Zach Galifianakis.
Oh, that's right. He went to NC State.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
cool. Arthur Blank, never mind. Arthur Blank did Home Depot, not Lowe's. He would actually, I almost asked him that because I was like, oh, wait, if I ask him about Lowe's, he's going to like kill me. You can't ask them.
Right.
Home Depot.
Lowe's was in North Wilkesboro, and then
it's the headquarters.
They moved to Charlotte like everything else, and the town kind of shut down.
We drive up to Boone every fall, man. It's awesome. Okay.
I love it there.
We started with White Train Panic and concerts, and now we've worked through the Redskins forever, and we got to organic apples and bourbon. JP Finlay. Always a pleasure, buddy. Let's hang soon. Hopefully this business going on will get done, and everybody can get back to being safe, and we'll grab a beer or a bourbon sometime.
I'd love to do that, man. Stay safe. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, buddy.